From Acres USA, you are listening to the Acres USA podcast, a conversational podcast where we'll explore sustainable farming, regenerative practices, and the latest innovations in eco-agriculture with some of your favorite farmers and ranchers. I'm your host, Taylor Henry, the owner and CEO of Acres USA. Welcome to the Acres USA podcast. All right, I am joined with Matt Powers. Matt does a lot of different things. He is an author, he is a teacher, a curriculum builder. They have an RSoil conference coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Matt, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being back on the Acres USA podcast, and we appreciate you coming back this year to EcoAg as well.
Well, I really appreciate it. It's exciting to be with you here and to be part of the community. Acres is something that I read, and I read it aspirationally. You know, I could apply certain things as a gardener, certain things as a homesteader, but in permaculture, when I was teaching, I would use Acres articles all the time. But the larger scale things, you know, I wanted to serve at that space and at that level. And it was, you know, doing regenerative soil microscopy that really put me in a position to serve those folks and help those people. And it all kind of just was wild, because now I get to teach so many farmers all over the world. I get to join you guys at EcoAg, and it's a total honor.
Yeah, I think what you do, I mean, you've taken the ideas around compost and building soil, and from your teacher background, you're able to communicate those things easily to folks in a simple way. So what are some of the things that you guys have been, well, I guess first, why don't you give folks who haven't heard about you or seen you before a quick background, and then we'll get into some of the things that you're working on this year.
Okay, all right, yeah. So I didn't intend to be a teacher, didn't intend to be a citizen scientist or any of these things. I grew up wanting to be a ski racer and a musician. And when I couldn't be a ski racer any longer, all I wanted to do was music. And I did it. I got to do it. I was on stage. And what happened was my wife got cancer, and our whole lives turned around and focused on health. I left the music industry. I became a teacher for healthcare. We just became really focused on family. We lived with 4 generations. We raised our boys with 4 generations on the same property. And it was gardening and trying to figure out how to grow in 140-degree soil above Fresno, and my students being ag students, like they're the children of ag families and large ranching families. I was actually close to the family that actually was the people who cut the first roads up to Yosemite, and were the first people using mule teams to clear the land. So that and this is I knew the guy who was a boy when they were doing it. He passed away a few years ago, but it was really an incredible place because you got to touch the history of America in a completely different way, right outside of Yosemite, right above Fresno. And I was a teacher in the 6th most violent county in America, Madera County, and I taught in Fresno, where, you know, Fresno has more gang members, you know, than LA. And so I really saw this incredible need and disconnect between nature and the soil, and everyone thought I was crazy for trying to garden, and this all happened at the same time. So I had initially some good success, and then all those animals from the national forests right there between Yosemite and you, they came down and ate everything. And then my father-in-law, trying to help, got like unfinished bull manure and put it on there. So I was initially discouraged, but I realized I had to go deeper. And so I started studying, because I couldn't pay for organic food, and my wife needed it, or at least not food that was going to hurt her, because not all organic food is good, you know, or nutritious. It lacks the gick, but, you know, doesn't necessarily have the nutrients that you actually need. So I was building soil, buying like cases of carrots from this organic farm in Fresno. We went and visited and saw the soil, and it was awful. And I was like, whoa, my soil's way better. Ah. And so I realized I was figuring things out. And then when I started doing things that with heirloom seeds that everyone freaked out about. And so I grew some corn that was photoperiodic, and it was apparently university said it was impossible to grow in North America. I figured it out, and and then I was growing in that 140-degree soil without water, with certain plants that I knew were used by Native Americans, and so in northern Mexico, and so I was like, it's red Aztec spinach. It's Aztec spinach. Do you think they're watering it, Matt? Let's see. And I turned on all these older genes in it, and the seeds went from white to black, but they did grow. They did make seed. It was wild. And I started getting all this attention, and I'm the local English teacher at this point. I'm the head of the English department. I have a master's degree in education. I write all my curriculum from scratch because their school has no books. It's a charter school with a limited budget. They spend all their budget for the first 5 years on MacBooks. So the kids the first year got awesome MacBooks. Second year, third year, everything could be worse and out of date. So it was a hard business model, and I really focused on core skills: the ability to speak, the ability to stand and deliver, the ability to, understand the world with critical thinking. And as I was doing this really pragmatism, this like proof that you're actually learning something, I started helping other teachers get rid of homework, because authentic learning makes it so if we go out in the woods together, chop some trees down, I teach you how to log and everything, you're not going to go home and draw a diagram and fill out worksheets. You're going to remember it. Authentic learning works that way. So, and it has to tie to something you care about and be experiential. And so I was really mastering this form of education using online tools, and and then I wrote permaculture curriculum because it didn't exist, and I wanted to be able to justify my science curriculum for my children. And it went viral, and I made $26,000 in a month. And fast forward, I've written 24 books in the past 10 years, and it shifted as it went deeper and deeper in service to my students, my audience. I have had to learn more and more and work with more and more experts and read more and more. And I just applied the master's degree education, best practices, educational development, and developmental psychology to permaculture, soil science, and the curriculum and the way they teach it. And it's not, from a well trained high school teacher, I'm sure they look at graduate school textbooks and go, there's no pictures. It's white boxes with letters in them and then a legend. And you're like, okay, the K is this and that's that. So that arrow means that. And you're trying to put together meaning, and it's kind of impossible. So I made pictures of what's actually they're talking about. So we see it, and I label it with a word. It's like stuff that like people would do if they were trying to teach people in a general sense in a large group. And it had never been done. And most science guys, they're like an engineer type brain, and they're not artistic. I'm artistic. That's who I am. And so I color coordinate things. I organize things in direct relation to best practices for comprehension. And it's been awesome because I'm learning so much from my students, because I observe my students, because I set it up so that I get that feedback loop of clarity. My students are doubling their yields. My students are getting rid of like terrible pest, blight, pathogens, disease in large scale farms. And so much of it is their understanding of the paradigm, their framework of understanding the backbone is intact, fine. And so that they can reason, they can run through the idea and figure it out themselves. That's the most important thing. And as an educator, that's really what I've always been doing in all the contexts I've been in, is developing a framework of understanding. So yeah, I can give you information, you'll encode it properly, and you'll be able to reason, logic, critically think and improvise, because that's the actual proof of education in reality, not just someone regurgitating information that they heard from another person. So that's really what I do. And it's been wild because it's turned me into a citizen scientist focused on soil and microscopy.
Yeah. How would you describe that framework? How do you install that into somebody?
Well, it depends on the content, how you organize it each time, but you have to make it iterative. So iterative is, I always see it visually. Iterative is a spiral staircase, and what happens is that lesson, that idea gets incorporated, and so as you go, you get reintroduced to it in a new context. So there's an introduction where I'm talking about this is calcium, right? In my textbook, and then I go through each. I open my book and open my course, teaching like how soils were formed in nature, and then I go to each mineral, and then I put them together, show their antagonism, then show their redox and how they relate, and then I show how plants work, and then how plants relate to them. And so it's all layering these holons together, and then I start taking it just into real context, showing how these things are all happening at the same time. So wrapping them together, and then I take them through problems and solutions, and they touch upon those things as we go through it. So that's one of the key ways to do it. Another key way to do it is you have to have summative, not progressive assessments. So what happens is, like permaculture, the reason I didn't do a PDC, a permaculture design certification, for a really long time was they just want a picture and they haven't done anything. It's a picture, it's a map, and it shows comprehension and understanding and learning, no doubt. But they haven't installed anything. They haven't like wrestled with the real. And so in my course, my advanced permaculture student online course, they actually do it. They create the actual thing. And so it's the novel application, problem solving in real time with like, it's so important. I mean, you can read a little pamphlet on driving a tractor, but when you get into it, you experience it and your body learns it. It's very different. And so I am all about authentic learning. So you got to apply these things. That's why in English class, it's like, oh, yeah, you wrote a paper. Great. Now let's turn it into a speech or a movie or a video or like a slideshow presentation that you give. Let's turn it into something that becomes something with purpose.
Yeah. I think the problem solving portion is like the most important thing as far as farmers and homesteader, anyone who's working with land and equipment, and it's just a constant problem solving. I mean, that's kind of why I'm addicted to it, because there's always a problem that needs to be solved. And I think the folks that struggle the most that's the issue that they have.
I bet that's why you like being an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a problem solving life, pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah, I find a lot of the people who are doing these high level farms or teaching as well also have this engineering background. And I think it's just the problem solving personality is why they have a lot of success.
Right. And usually they're attracted to certain types of teachers, and so that creates a siloing effect, and that's why I've been able to kind of come in and be disruptive,
Mm-hmm.
because I come from a different perspective, and I tend to try to be as holistic as possible, and so that zooms people out. And whenever you take someone wherever they are and zoom them out effectively, they've gained like deeper insight.
Yeah. What would you say that this year you're working on the most? Are you focusing more on the compost right now?
So right now I'm really working on communicating to farmers the importance of microscopy. I just did a course launch for regenerative soil microscopy, and the number one thing I noticed was people really want to know the actual test, what you can actually do, how can actually, you know what I mean? They want that. And, that's obviously in my course, but people want to hear about it before they take the course. And so I've been showcasing, talking about, and kind of refining my case for it, because as I understand the perspective and the situation better, I'm like, oh, well, yes, mycorrhizal fungi will help you, but you have 50 years of glyphosate built up in your soil. So let's not even talk about that right now. Let's put that to the side. And so, like, I'm getting under, because I'm like talking to them about that, and I'm like, arbuscular microfungi, you got to do this, you need this microscope. And they're like, so I add mycorrhizal fungi, it doesn't seem to do anything. And I'm like, oh, really? And I was like, is there any possibility that glyphosate has ever been used? They're like, well, I use it a little bit, not a lot. And they're like immediately defensive. And I'm like, okay, how long has it been used? They're like, oh, 50 years. And I'm like, do you know that one application can last over 20 years if not remediated? It can stay for 20 years and be active and damaging and inhibitive. And most people don't know that. And so it's built up so much. And so there's, like, I need to talk about those conversations around farmers, because so many of them are embarrassed to say it themselves, you know, and they're also don't know what to do. Luckily, we have the Dr. Don Huber, who's been working on that, and all over the world, not just in America. And he's proven that, sauerkraut juice, and there's also, EM and other things that they can and compost teas, right? If you've got the right microbes in that compost, they can degrade and cycle glyphosate. So I really want to give farmers confidence and hope. And that's really been kind of like my focus, is kind of understanding the actual situation, because it's hard. I mean, let me fix my camera. It's hard because so many of these farmers, they don't know what's important and what's not, because they don't have a systemic understanding.
Hey, eco farmers. This is Taylor Henry with Acres U.S.A. I hope you enjoy this podcast as much as I enjoy interviewing these folks. If you're serious about regenerative agriculture, I've got an incredible resource you need to check out: the Acres U.S.A. membership. You farm in the physical world, and you deserve a physical printed magazine to match. Since 1971, Acres U.S.A. magazine has been the leading voice in ecological agriculture, delivering the best insights from regenerative farmers, agronomists, and researchers to help you farm profitably without toxic chemicals. Our membership included physical and digital copies of the magazine each month of the year, which has always been a standard for Acres U.S.A., but we wanted to over-deliver on content. When I acquired this business, I was happy to find that we had years of audio files from presentations at our annual EcoAg conference. And guess what? They were hiding. Well, not anymore. We developed this membership portal that gives you access to the recordings from farmers like Gabe Brown, Gary Zimmer, Joel Salatin, and Mark Shepard. We also include recordings of private events. Finally, if you are like me and you like listening to content, we are now producing a membership-only podcast of each issue of the magazine, so you can consume each article while you're out in the field. To make things even sweeter, you'll get discounts on books, workshops, and events to keep expanding your knowledge. So are you ready to take your farming to the next level? Join today for a ridiculously low price at eco-farming.com, or see details in the notes.
And
Yeah, I think I'm excited because Dr. Huber he's done these studies. They've kind of wrapped them up, and they're doing a 2-day symposium on essentially their findings with glyphosate for like the last 10 years. And they have 15 or 16 different speakers that are a part of it. So those first 2 days of EcoAg U, Don has a group of people that are, and there's some major names in it, but some of the studies that they're doing, I mean, that could revolutionize agriculture. I mean, the sauerkraut juice is a really interesting topic because it's kind of a waste product. You can access it pretty cheaply. it depends on where you're at. Like in Wisconsin here, we have, I think it's like the number one place for making sauerkraut, so we can get it fairly easily. But um, yeah, what are some of the things that you've studied and learned from Dr. Huber that you're kind of hoping comes out in this symposium?
Well, okay, so the things that have really emerged from reading one of his books on Africa and humans and animals and pesticides was that mycotoxins take over in the absence of good biology. And so you see these fusarium like blooms. We see these mycotoxins, aflatoxins on the wind. These are large scale problems, and it so much of it is because we're using glyphosate. Glyphosate directly relates to mycotoxins, and so many people in America right now are suffering from mold and mycotoxins, and they have no idea. It's in their food. It's contaminating their food because it's so many of these things like fusarium are endophytic. So unless we're taking good endophytes and putting them on our plants to displace this, it's going to stay there because it's saprophytic. So it's going to live inside your plant happily while you're spraying things and be like, haha, I'm inside. And then it's going to break down your plant and give it a blight and break it down. It'll act as a pathogen, and then it'll break into the plant. And then as it dies, it'll consume the dead organic matter. So it's like a full cycle thing, just like yeast, just like lactic acid bacteria, just like a lot of these beneficials, but they are pathogens who are riding the same path. And I really hope he goes into that because that dovetails what I'm doing because it's like, well, aspergillus, there's aspergillus oryzae, which is the sake and miso and koji aspergillus, and that's edible. People eat that all the time. But Aspergillus fumigatus is is the thing that gives people aspergillosis, which is deadly. And Aspergillus fumigatus is being sold as a biofertilizer commercially now, and I found this to be just so frightening. And it's the work I'm doing to spread awareness around the good guys and the bad guys is it dovetails with so much of the stuff that Dr. Don Huber has done and pioneered and made space for, because I'm helping people see those things that he's talking about, and protect ourselves against those things. Because if we don't look, we don't see, and if we just trust, that something will go right, like you can improve your soil, but if these things aren't remediated out, you can improve the process of all this. But if they're still dominant, you need to displace them.
What would be that process then? What is the process that you believe is a way to remediate it?
So there are biocontrol microbes. Arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi is one of those biocontrols, but it's steps. It's successional, just like in nature. Succession is how things work, right? So we walk, then we run, and so I would deal with the glyphosate first, or any like if you have phosphate that's residual, it's going to desiccate your organic matter. It's going to prevent arbuscular mycorrhizal from growing, just like glyphosate would. So inhibition. I'm going to try to find antagonism, inhibition, and break that up, and find more coherence. Maybe it's the pH. And there's a bunch of things, and we got to ride with it. But if there's acute toxins or contamination, you got to take care of that first. And like for my friends who are in Eastern Washington, I have a surprisingly a growing body of farmers in Idaho, Eastern Washington, Montana, North Dakota that are reaching out to me to speak and help them. And they have a legacy of glyphosate in that soil more often than not. And what's happened is glyphosate is a all spectrum, like, well, broad spectrum chelator. So it was used, it was originally designed and used to clean industrial pipes. So it removes the gunk off the sides of the pipes and leaves it nice and clean. That's what we're spraying on our plants. And so that thing that liberates things and loosens things is doing it in your soil. So why is the aluminum super high and you're like, everything you're doing, it should be buffering it. It's not. It's because you have a legacy of glyphosate, Roundup, that is releasing the aluminum and keeping it acidic and keeping it chelated. And so you're always going to test high in that until you deal with the glyphosate. And then you can deal with your aluminum levels and acidity. So,
What's the vehicle that you would use though? Like, so you're saying before you even put compost, before you go down the biological road, you would try to remediate the glyphosate issue. But
so there's
what
a
are you,
there's a few
what,
different
okay,
there's a few different ways. For glyphosate, you would use something like sauerkraut juice or like Terraganics EM1, or if you have good compost, I would do extract from good compost and test it. But with
like would
not,
you add something to the compost?
I would add EM. And that's what am I specifically talking about? EM stands for effective microbes. It is cerevisiae yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae. It is lactic acid bacteria, so lactobacillus species like Lactobacillus plantarum, um, and it's purple non-sulfur bacteria, which is what they use to eat the algae in ponds. So people who are into um, working with ponds, people who are into working with aquariums, all use purple non-sulfur bacteria, Rhodosudomonas palustris, to control that. So if you have a slough, if you have a pond on your thing that's just covered in algae, you can fix it. And I would use these microbes. And then I would test and make sure that it's gone. The thing is, like, you're like, wait, but EM's acidic. Um, yeah, you might need to do things where they dip the wrong direction for a minute while you remediate and then bring it back up. Often with remediating something like lead or something like that, you might miss a season. You know what I mean? So that's just part of like getting these things out so you can fully reset. And I'm not saying farmers are dealing with like Michigan lead problems all the time, but in those cases, Superfund sites, they might years, of work.
Yeah. So just to give people a little bit of background on the sauerkraut study that Dr. Huber did, we have a pretty good article on it on our website. They found that they were using it in TMR mixes, feeding it at feedlots. It dropped the mortality of the in the feedlots substantially, and then they were also applying it directly on fields where, say, an organic producer was raising a vegetable crop or some sort of small grain, and they had put some sort of amendment on the field at one point, and their whole field died. And they believe that because it's organic, there either was the residual in the soil or even the chicken manure, because organic producers can get conventional chicken manure composted, that it was just in that. What do you think? What do you think the vehicle is with the sauerkraut that's combating the glyphosate residual effects?
What's interesting is if we look at it under the microscope, it looks almost like just a concentrated form of EM. So form wise, obviously they taste different, right? And then water keeper. Water keeper is yeast and lactic acid bacteria. And obviously that tastes different too and has bubbles, right? But they all look very similar under the microscope. They have these long rods, which are the lactobacillus. That's how, and then they have yeast, which are, an order of magnitude bigger than the bacteria. So you have like, and they can be even bigger as they swell. So you have these like very obvious indicators, you know, to even someone as a beginner, if you starting out with microscopes, you're going to know yeast and you're going to know lactic acid bacteria if you've been taught it. It's very, very recognizable. So you see this huge overlap immediately of that biology in them all just by looking. I think the other aspect is the pH. So the pH and the microbes are happy at that pH. They're doing work at that pH. So it's pH 3.5 for EM, effective microbes, and sauerkraut. That's usually pretty acidic. I can't I don't know right off the top of my head the acidity of it, but I know it is. And same thing with waterkeeper. Part of the reason why it's a good digestive. You know what I mean? And so you know when you're eating it, you're helping your stomach acids digest. So
Google thinks sauerkraut juice pH typically is around 3.5 to 3.8, which would make sense.
right, and so the microbes that live in that range are all kind of looking the same, and these are all edible modalities. You know what I mean? And so they're edible in that range, and they have these amazing properties for reestablishing things. We use these microbes to preserve our food, for biocontrol on our food, for long periods of time, for preparation for the food to be even more bioavailable for us. So, and also like where does acetobacter come from? Right, acetic acid, vinegar. You know, like where does that come from? If we look at the process for making sauerkraut, it's salt and the plant, and that's it. And so, like, what we're doing is exposing things that are in the plant and letting a selection of the microbes from in the plant do this work. So, the acetic acid formed from your apple cider vinegar was made by the microbes that were in the apples, right? We're hanging those apples and they're just dripping down. We we really have the ability to partner with these microbes, but we have to recognize that they're the ones doing the work.
Yeah, we've made a commitment to start uh free well not free choicing but putting in our cattle water apple cider vinegar, and it makes a big difference. I think we're probably talking about some of the same mechanisms when it comes to sauerkraut and
What's so interesting is that the probiotics that people are buying are what's in EM. So like provolone bacteria is in like the best liquid, like it's in all of them basically when they've been tested. And so our plants, when they're really healthy, actually have probiotics in them, and that's why they feel good and they make us feel so good, because they have the microbes for our gut specifically keyed for our environment, specifically keyed to digest the food we just ate.
yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. Obviously people knew for a long time that you should take a shot of apple cider vinegar. Um but maybe you should add a shot of sauerkraut juice with it.
Yeah, definitely. They sell that actually at Whole Foods. It's interesting because years ago, Dr. Lane Ingham said, "I don't take any vitamins. Vitamins are unnecessary if you have healthy plants." And man, we never had the ability at that point really to test the individual plant that we're about to eat. Like John Kemp is working on that the ability to do that. I feel like that's going to change everything. But she had the right idea. We really should be able to get most things from our plants. And it's like I always see these degenerative, like, false versions of what we're doing in that space. Like there's these counterfeits. And so now they're talking about putting medicine and RNA and vaccines into food. And it's like, no, 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 no. Food that is healthy already has natural immunity boosting, natural probiotic, prebiotic things for your body that help your defense against those things, help you key into the actual environment so you are actually protected by your environment and not fighting your environment. And they're just trying, the thing with GMOs that most people don't understand is that they're literally taking a natural organism and going whip whip whip, whip. Oh, it's on mine now. And they're just claiming it's theirs because they went and changed a couple things on the DNA. And they were like, oh, we used a natural process to do it. And it's like the natural processes don't have human discretion. Like we are deciding and we don't have good discretion. It, we only found out about epigenetics recently, right? So they're changing genes in the 80s and 90s, never knowing that each gene has up to 3,000 different like variations epigenetics attached to it, and there's a syntax between genes. So they're simply stealing nature, repackaging it, patenting it, claiming it's theirs, and they're working on the biology that goes into the plant, that goes into your gut, and they want to own it. And I am completely against that. We must defend what is natural. And that's why so much of my work is like, well, how does nature do it? And that's why I'm making that database, the RSoil database, because I want to show in a way that we replicate, in a way that we showcase the DNA, the plant sap, the roots, all of these things so that people choose regenerative ag and everyone makes more money and we get the best food out of it and we all regain our health. But it's also because this is the only way to showcase those things and to prevent that industry from continuing to. And it's not like our birthright. It's like its own birthright. Like it's nature. Like you can't own nature. You can't patent. You can't own a person. You can't own a person. And they're increasingly owning patents on human DNA. And this in the up until I think mid or early 80s, this was considered immoral and unethical. And I still think it is immoral and unethical. And so we really need to showcase these things so that they can be recognized, because only when they're recognized can they be appreciated and thus protected. So I'm doing there's stacked functions going on with all the things I'm doing.
Hello, everybody. This year marks a milestone, the 50th annual Acres U.S.A. EcoAg Conference and Trade Show, happening December 1st through the 4th, 2025 in Madison, Wisconsin. For 5 decades, this event has been the nation's premier gathering for farmers, ranchers, researchers, and industry leaders who believe in building soil health, resilient farm systems, and thriving rural economies. Join us for 4 days of expert-led workshops, dynamic keynote sessions, and the largest EcoAg trade show in the country. All designed to give you the tools and connections you need to grow smarter and farm with a purpose. This year's lineup includes innovators like Gabe Brown, Joel Salatin, Rick Clark, Neil Kinsey, Dr. James White, Dr. Don Huber, Helen Attow, Dan Kittredge, Will Harris, Aaron Silva, Dr. Nasha Winters, and many, many more. Don't miss your chance to be part of this historic 50th anniversary celebration at EcoAg 2025. Register today at the link in the bio. Yeah, I agree with you on all that stuff. I think we've proven as a society too, whatever we've been doing hasn't been working. So
Yeah.
we need to adjust. And usually I think people almost look like it's too simplistic when you say just allow nature to do what nature does. But I think we had a lot more success before when we did that.
Well, I want to know how nature does it. That might not mean that nature can do it in your situation or context, right? The thing is, it's like if there's a natural pathway, we might have to recreate it. Just like with the upwellings getting slowed down by all the warm water off of the coastlines. If they just bring back the upwelling, like passively using solar pumps or passive pumps to bring cold water back up, it restores all the nutrient cycling in life. And so I feel like so much of it is that we just really need to understand the cycle and then we can reconnect it. Some of the things we can't get
Yeah.
around. There's no glaciation in Australia, right? There's we can't get around that. That means those soils are so ancient that some of them don't have cobalt. Some of them don't have like incredibly important things. And so New Mexico has some places like that, right? And just understanding your context is incredibly important. But knowing what is natural or could be natural in that situation, I think is the key.
Yeah, and we've obviously degenerated things, so like it's not nature isn't nature right now, so we do have to intervene and do some things.
Oh yeah.
Um, I know you've said in the past that the best compost is contextual, and we're talking about context, but what do you, I guess, give me your rundown on compost and what people are misunderstanding about it and where the mistakes are coming in.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. So most people aren't pH testing, they're not nitrate testing, they're not phosphate testing, they're compost. They're just adding it on because compost is good. It's organic matter. The thing is, if you test hot compost, it's going to be pH 8. And if you let it sit for a while and calm down, you can get down to 7.5 or even 7. Like Johnson's is good at getting closer to 7. But hot compost is hot for a very good reason. It's oxidizing, just like a match or flame does on wood. It oxidizes the wood. So that's where the heat comes from. What's being oxidized? Carbon and nitrogen. So NO3 is nitrate. So if our compost is above pH 7, it's going to have nitrates anyway. And if you do it really, really hot, you'll burn them off and there won't be any nitrogen in it. And so the life will be dead or dead mostly and some anaerobic. And if you retain your nitrogen, it's going to be nitrate. Above pH 7, it has to be. So, so, and then phosphate, if it's high, and this is variable, some piles are high and some piles are low. And it depends on the ingredients and the microbes present, what it turns out. And so the phosphate, if you have high phosphate compost and you're adding it at the root zone on your transplants when you're adding your mycorrhizal fungi, you just counteracted yourself and cost yourself, because there are arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi who will not partner with the root because the root will be like, I got plenty of phosphate, I don't need you, and it will inhibit it, and it will not partner with the roots. And the roots are fast growers. Roots aren't going to wait around for like a spore to pop. You need propagules for arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi for it to be effective and timely. And you also need to do the seeds on arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, because the moment they come out and they touch arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, the root, it inoculates the whole root. If they start together, they stay together. But if you have got a plant you're trying to inoculate it, you'll get little bits here and there. So even if they wake up late, there's run through the phosphate, they're already way past that, and everything all really happens at the root tip and just past it. So most people don't understand that they have to respect their soil, their roots in a different way with compost. People just think compost is compost. And the number one thing I would recommend you do is with your compost, put biocontrol on it. So add more microbes, add endophytic saprophytes like cerevisiae yeast and lactic acid bacteria, lactobacillus species. And if you can get purple entomobacteria, excellent. If you could, that's all in EM1. If you want to just buy EM1 and use that, that's excellent too. Terra Organics. But you can brew those microbes in water kefir, right? You can brew those microbes, or get some of those microbes from breweries. The point is that if you apply that to it, it will lower the pH. Flipping it below 7 flips it so that it removes those oxygen, that oxygen, and it creates a situation that's more acidic, and then it has ammonium. And if it's below pH 7, it's going to have ammonium, not nitrate dominant. But if it's below pH 7 because of EM, they're amino acids now. So it's going to translate your hot compost into something that's more stable. It's going to be higher in polysaccharides. It's going to have amino acids now. And so that nitrogen's not going to shock your system. It's not going to burn anything. It's going to be readily accepted by the biology and the plant, and the leaching is not going to happen. So those are the kind of things I would watch out for with compost and try to do.
Where are you getting your test done at?
Which test?
The compost. How are you testing the compost?
Okay, so I test my compost myself, and I also calibrate. What I do is I calibrate my tests. So I use Lamont sometimes. That's like a home test kit, but everything's color based on there, and you're like, hey, color based. That sounds so. They're using colors for the M3. A colorimeter is what they use to read the Melic 3. So everything's color based. So I've got tests that I correlate to the M3. So I'll do the M3 like once in the spring, once in the fall, and I also do the Haney, and then I correlate it to those tests so that I can test throughout the year inputs. So I know like if there's a wiggle or if it's like just slightly off, that I gotta hedge my thoughts on things. I gotta like be careful about being too definitive with things, maybe. Um, but the nitrate test and the phosphate test is pretty solid on and pretty on for Lamont. So I use those. Let me grab it. That's just this. I got a new one. I was doing the giveaway, and I've got all these little like lunch boxes, and I gave away the one I had bought myself and was using. So the person got like a kit with like some of the stuff used. It was anyway. I let them know and sent them another kit. But I was supposed to send them the microbiometer kit. They're all in lunch boxes though. I got confused. So I use that. I use this primarily because you can see changes morphologically and behaviorally. The thing with microscopy for a long time is they didn't do it in 4K, they didn't do it on a screen, they didn't record it, and they didn't share it. And so you look back at these like published, studies, you know, 50 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago in some publications, there's no pictures. They have charts, and you're like, this is a microscopy thing, right? No, and then some of the images are like pixelated, and you're like, your camera is pixelated, and you made a study, huh? Like, and it became obvious that they didn't want people to see their actual work to question their actual conclusions. And I realized that was the elephant in the room. And so I do DNA testing as well in house. I'm in between things right now, so I don't have that here. But I try to do 360 testing, and that's what the database is going to be. So mineral testing, microscopy testing, pH, and soon with the help of John or sensing, we'll have EH. So at redox. Um, and then when plant sap becomes more affordable because it's here in the States, hopefully John takes care of that one too. Then and then we'll add plant sap to the database. But it's these aspects, what's going into the plant, what's in the soil, and actually I want to add in total digestion to that. That's one of the ones I want to add in eventually. But having that full spectrum picture for the first time, being like, this is the DNA, this is what it looks like under the microscope. These are the minerals in the soil that are soluble. These are the minerals that are all the minerals that are in the parent material, in the clay sand itself. And then these are the ones making it into the plant. And you're going to go, oh, you're missing these solubilizers. And then you can get those actual microbes from your local biofertilizer brewer. This is the future I ideally see. And they could be giving you that. Why?
Yeah.
And why would they have that? Well, they would take local plants and ferment them, and those that biology eating that local plant that liberates those foods feeds on them. And so they're solubilizers for that thing. And you could test it and say they're in there, just like we just talked about. And then you could sell that product, and they could apply it and fill in the gap in their biology and then finish that cycling process. So
Yeah.
that's really the future I foresee with all of this.
That's pretty cool. Well, I'm excited to hear you talk at EcoEgg about all this stuff, probably a lot more in depth. I wish we had more time to dive into all of it. Do you want to give a little bit of a snippet about your guys' event that you have coming up here in a couple weeks?
Yeah, RSoil. This is an incredible event. Acres is sponsoring it. This is an event I started last year. It went so big, so well that this is my favorite new event that I do online. Yeah, I've been doing Our Future for 5 years now. RSoil, regenerative soil, obviously, but also RSoil together. Features over 30 speakers. It's free for everyone to attend. You get to watch the replays. You get to attend the lives. There's giveaways, crazy giveaways. We're going to be giving away this soil light right here, the 5 of them. We're going to be giving away T-shirts like I just showed you. We're going to give away hats in this style as well. It's October 1st through 5th. If you just go to r-soil.com, www.r-soil.com, you can sign up for free. You can join us. You can win fun stuff and watch incredible talks from Ray Archuleta, John Kemp, Nigel Palmer, Kelpie Wilson, Chris Trump, and many, many more. So I hope you guys join us for that.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to be a part of it as well. All right, Matt, we're looking forward to seeing you in December, and good luck with everything. And I would recommend everyone attending that virtual conference as well.
Thank you, Taylor.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Acres U.S.A. podcast, a podcast production of Acres U.S.A. Find us on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, and other popular podcast platforms. Acres U.S.A. is North America's oldest publisher on production-scale organic and regenerative farming. For more than 50 years, our mission has been to help farmers, ranchers, and market gardeners grow food profitably, regeneratively, and with nature in mind. Find our books and other Acres USA media and learn about Acres USA events at acresusa.com. Read our online magazine at members.acresusa.com, and we'd like to thank Acres USA staff for their contributions to producing this podcast. This episode was edited and engineered by Weston Larson of Acres USA. We're grateful to our guests for taking the time to talk with us about their experiences.